Dust clung to the soles of their boots like it was part of the uniform. The sun beat down on the training field as the platoon of new recruits stood in ragged formation, half sweating, half smirking. Their camouflage fatigues were too clean, their boots barely broken in, and the adrenaline of their first week made them cocky in all the wrong ways. A whistle pierced the dry air. "Eyes front," barked Sergeant Hanley, a brick of a man with the personality of a sandblaster. He paced before them like a lion sniffing weakness. "You're not here to play war games. You're here to learn how not to die." A few recruits shifted, boots scraping the gravel. One of them, tall and wiry with sun-bleached hair, blew a puff of air through his lips and rolled his shoulders like the weight of military life was already boring him. "That includes listening," Hanley growled, eyeing him. "So zip it, Private Landers." Landers grinned, the grin of someone who thought the rules didn't apply yet. Behind Hanley, a figure stepped out from the shadows of the overhang. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She moved across the training yard like she was walking into enemy territory, measured steps. No wasted motion. Her uniform looked nothing like theirs. It was standard issue, sure, but faded with time and stained with something that wasn't just mud. Her boots were scuffed, her rank insignia barely visible, and her sleeves were rolled high, revealing forearms crisscrossed with scars, faint but unmistakable. No fanfare, no name, just presence. The recruits squinted. Some glanced at each other. A few raised eyebrows. Then Landers tilted his head, smirked, and elbowed the guy next to him. "Did the Salvation Army send us backup?" A few snorts followed, nervous ones, but no one said anything. She didn't flinch, just stood beside Sergeant Hanley and folded her arms behind her back. Hanley gave a sharp nod. "This is Warrant Officer Rowe. She'll be overseeing your tactical evaluations for the next 6 weeks. Do not underestimate her." Landers leaned sideways and muttered just loud enough to carry, "Is she even active? That uniform's older than my mother." Laughter rippled through the line like a bad joke at a funeral. She didn't move. Her eyes, dark, steady, tracked to him for exactly 1 second, enough to freeze his breath. Then she looked away like he didn't matter. That cut deeper than any glare. "Something funny, Private?" Hanley asked. "No, Sergeant," Landers said, still grinning. "Just thought we were getting trained by actual soldiers, not museum exhibits." The yard went silent. Even the wind stilled. Then a voice cracked the air. Quiet, disbelieving. "Wait." Everyone turned. It was Private Keenan, bookish, soft-spoken, third in line. His eyes were locked on her sleeve. Specifically, on the small patch just above her elbow. Barely visible. Black with silver trim. A gasping breath. Is that the widow insignia?" Heads whipped around. Even Hanley blinked. Landers chuckled. Confused. "What's a widow? Sounds like a comic book villain." Keenan didn't laugh. He looked pale. "You idiot," he whispered. "That's the Iron Widow." Silence. Someone else muttered under their breath. "That can't be right. Is that even a real person? I thought she was dead." "The widow's a myth. Ghost story." But Hanley's face told a different story. It wasn't the look of someone surprised. It was the look of someone suddenly remembering not to speak out of turn. Landers was the only one still smiling, but now it looked a little thin. "Sergeant?" he asked, less cocky now. Hanley spoke, finally. "Shut your damn mouth, Private." Then he turned to her. "Ma'am, permission to dismiss the squad." She nodded once. Squad? Dismissed. Boots scrambled. Some lingered. Others stole glances over their shoulders like they were afraid to turn their backs. No one spoke. Even Landers stayed quiet, jaw set and eyes trying not to follow her movement. But she didn't leave. She walked forward, slowly, toward where Landers had stood moments before. He hadn't moved. He was still there, now alone, the joke hanging in the air like a rotten stink. She stopped 2 paces in front of him. For the first time, she spoke. Her voice was low and calm, quieter than he expected, but clear as a blade being unsheathed. "You don't have to respect the uniform, Private, but you'd better know the stories behind the bloodstains before you laugh at them." She turned, walked away. and Landers finally understood that no one was laughing anymore. Night came early on base, the kind of night that didn't bring peace, just silence. Private Landers sat on the edge of his bunk in the dim barracks, staring down at his boots. For once, his mouth was shut. He could still hear her voice. You don't have to respect the uniform, Private, but you'd better know the stories behind the bloodstains before you laugh at them. It hadn't been loud. That's what unnerved him. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even anger. It was truth. Cold, measured, and heavier than any reprimand he'd ever gotten. He finally turned to his roommate, Keenan, the quiet one, the only one who had recognized her. You said she's the Iron Widow, Landers muttered. Who the hell is that? Keenan didn't answer right away. He was staring out the window. Then, you ever look up a name and find nothing but redacted files and dead links? Landers frowned. She's Black Ops. She was. Keenan glanced at him, until her whole team was wiped out, and she walked out alone. Landers scoffed, but it was thin. Yeah? Sure. Sounds like campfire BS. She carried 3 men on her back for 5 kilometers. After they bled out, she kept going. Wounded, half-blind, no comms. She made it to the evac point on instinct. Landers didn't reply. She lost her husband on that op. Keenan added, quieter now. He bled out in her arms. She never took another mission, refused every promotion, just faded into base roles. Support, logistics, like she wanted to be forgotten. A long silence stretched between them. Landers finally stood. I need to see it for myself. The digital archive room was dim, locked behind biometric doors and layers of protocol. But Keenan had been around long enough to know the workarounds. They waited until lights out, then snuck in with a borrowed clearance key from an old staff sergeant who owed Keenan a favor. Landers stood over the terminal, face lit by the blue glow of the monitor. He typed slowly. Row, Warrant Officer Sarah. The page loaded. He leaned forward. Access restricted, classified. One line appeared beneath it. Operative associated with Operation Frostlock. 4th Recon Black Group. Mission outcome. Catastrophic. Survivors. 1 inch. He opened the only file that wasn't locked down. A single photo. Not a posed military headshot. This one was taken in the field. Rose stood in a snow-swept clearing. Her uniform soaked. Her rifle slung over one shoulder. Blood on her face, not all of it hers. Her eyes looked off camera, somewhere distant. In her arms, she was carrying a man, his face obscured by his helmet, body limp, arm dangling. Behind her, 2 others, half dragged through the snow, strapped together with a length of rope. All dead, and she still walked. Landers stared at the screen. He didn't speak. His throat was dry. At the bottom of the file, 1 line of text stood out. Subject refused Medal of Honor. Cited. No one came back. I don't want a prize for that. He leaned back from the monitor, like the truth had reached out and punched him in the gut. Keenan was watching. She's not a legend, man. She's just someone who survived something nobody else did. Flashback? Years earlier. Location. Kernava Mountains, border of a Cold War nobody claimed. Snow fell in blinding sheets as the squad trudged through the frozen pass. Visibility was near zero. The mountain's wind howled like a living thing, shrieking through their radios. Sarah Rowe walked point, rifle up, eyes sharp beneath a frosted visor. Her husband, Lieutenant Mark Rowe, brought up the rear. They spoke in bursts, clipped comms, half code and half instinct. Sound off, she barked. Echo 3, clear. Echo 4, movement northwest. The explosion hit like a hammer. Her ears rang. She hit the ground, her teeth rattling. Smoke, screams, shrapnel. Her HUD went black. She pulled herself up and turned. Mark was down. She crawled toward him, half blind, dragging herself through blood-stained snow. He was hit in the chest. Bad. Stay with me, she said. Her voice cracked. Mark, stay with me. I told you, he whispered. You always lead better than I do. Shut up. You're gonna get them out. His hand brushed her face. Promise me. She pressed her forehead to his. I can't. You already did. He died with a breath she tried to keep in her hands. But she had to move. 3 of them were still breathing. Barely. She strapped their bodies together. Lifted 1. Then 2. Then all 3. She walked. For 5 kilometers. Over ice. Through a storm. One by one, they slipped away. But she never stopped walking. Back to present. The barracks were quiet. The blue light from the screen still glowed in Lander's stunned face. She wore that same uniform today, he muttered. The one from the photo. Every stain on it means something, Keenan said. She never washed it out. Never replaced it. That's why you don't laugh. Landers turned away from the screen, suddenly cold despite the summer night. She's not a ghost, Keenan added. She's a reminder. Landers stopped cracking jokes after that night. No one noticed at first. The rest of the recruits were too busy memorizing procedure, sweating through drills, and trying not to piss off Sergeant Hanley. But the change was there, subtle, like a light had gone out behind his eyes. He still kept pace in runs, still hit his marks on the range, but the swagger was gone. Something colder had taken its place. Quiet observation, and his eyes kept finding her. Warrant Officer Rowe wasn't like the other instructors. She didn't shout or curse or strut around for dominance. She gave her instructions clearly, then watched in silence. Most recruits didn't know what to do with that. Some assumed she didn't care. Landers had seen the photo. He knew better. He noticed the way her eyes never stopped moving, scanning the terrain, the sky. The treeline beyond the fence like ghosts might come crawling through it any minute. During one afternoon weapons drill, he watched her disassemble and reassemble a sidearm without looking down once. She moved like the weapon was an extension of her own breath. No one else noticed. They were too focused on their own struggles, cursing stuck bolts, fumbling mags. She caught him watching. Their eyes locked. She didn't nod, didn't smile, just blinked, then turned away. But for Landers, something shifted in that glance. The next day, they ran a forced march. 10 miles in full gear under the weight of the midday sun. Half the recruits were dragging by mile 6. By mile 8, one had already dropped. Landers was near the front when he noticed Rowe shadowing them. She wasn't marching, just walking behind them, expression unreadable, observing, judging. At mile 9, a recruit twisted her ankle and went down hard. Her partner hesitated, looking back. Rowe didn't. She crossed the distance before anyone else could react. In one smooth motion, she knelt beside the girl, checked her ankle, then slung the smaller woman over her back like she weighed nothing. And she walked, kept pace with them, in full uniform. No breaks, no breath wasted. No one said a word. Landers swallowed hard. He kept marching. That night, in the chow hall, he couldn't shake the image from his head. The rest of the squad joked about the food. A few of them still whispered about the widow, but it was starting to sound more like reverence than mockery. Landers sat across from Keenan. She didn't even flinch today, he said. Just picked her up and kept moving. Keenan nodded, spooning cold potatoes. That's how she is. Doesn't do it for show. Doesn't do it for thanks. Just does what needs doing. Landers looked over at her across the room. She sat alone at a small corner table. Quiet, calm, like the storm inside her had burned out long ago and left only the coals behind. Why does she still wear that uniform? He asked. After everything, after what happened to her husband, after all the medals she refused. Keenan set down his fork. I think it's the only piece of him she's got left. Landers didn't speak. A week passed. Their squad was assigned a simulated urban tactics course. A nighttime run through a mock village constructed deep in the base's wooded edge. One way in, one way out. The goal: locate the hostage, avoid civilian casualties, and clear the area without triggering alarms or setting off dummy IEDs. Rowe briefed them. Her voice, as always, was cool and precise. You're not soldiers in this simulation, she said. You're ghosts. Move like it. Think like it. She walked the perimeter as they prepared. Her eyes skimmed their packs, weapons postures. She didn't say a word. Landers stepped up beside her as the others double-checked gear. He hesitated, then spoke. I read the file, he said quietly. She looked at him. Not surprised. Not hostile. Just waiting. I'm sorry, he added. About what I said. Back on the field. A pause. Are you sorry? She asked. Because of who I am? Or because of what I've done? He blinked. The question cut deeper than he expected. I'm sorry, he said. Because I spoke like someone who didn't know what survival costs. Another pause. Then a faint nod. That's better. She walked away, and Landers felt something lift from his chest. Not absolution, but a thread of permission. The first one she'd given him. The simulation began at 0300 hours. They moved in teams, scanning corners, moving room to room, hearts thudding under vests. Smoke canisters created chaos. Recorded screams echoed from hidden speakers. It was meant to mimic confusion, disorient them. It worked. Half the squad lost comms midway through. One team took a wrong turn and tripped an alarm that ended their mission early. Landers' team pushed forward. Only 2 of them left. Breathing hard. Sweating bullets. Then a detonation. Dummy charge, flash and boom. But it hit Landers in the chest like a hammer. He flew sideways into a pile of broken plaster. Private Landers down. The evaluator called. He knew the rules. When you're marked dead, you stay put. But as he lay there, blinking through the sweat and fog, he looked up and saw her. Ro was leaning against a crumbled doorway across the courtyard, arms crossed. Watching. She wasn't evaluating anymore. She was remembering. A flicker passed through her eyes. Pain? Memory? Maybe both. Then she turned and vanished back into the dark. And Landers realized she wasn't just watching for performance. She was watching to see who'd live and who wouldn't. The base alarms didn't sound like the usual drills. They were sharper, shorter, real. Red lights flooded the barracks just after 0500. Landers was halfway through tying his boots when the speakers crackled to life. Code Delta. Perimeter breach. All non-deployed personnel to lockdown positions. This is not a drill. Recruits scrambled. Hearts pounding, half awake and adrenaline drunk. Gear spilled from lockers. Some froze. Others fumbled with vests and latches. Landers shot a glance at Keenan. What the hell is Code Delta? Keenan paled. Live threat. Full lockdown. Either an armed breach or containment failure. But it's just a base. Black site nearby. Keenan interrupted. Rumors of experimental tech. Weapons. Drones. He swallowed. Ghost stuff. Stuff Ro might have worked with. The room rumbled faintly. Then a second explosion closer. Outside. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the eastern sky in blood-orange streaks. Smoke curled into the air from the far perimeter wall. A security vehicle lay overturned, flames licking its tires. Screams echoed from the eastern compound. Hanley was already issuing orders through his radio, barking into the wind. Lock the south gates. Get medics to Grid 9. Where the hell is Echo Response? And then she appeared. Ro stepped through the smoke, unarmed, jacket half-zipped, but walking with intent. She moved past chaos like she'd seen it before, because she had. Hanley, she called. He turned, startled. Ro? What the hell's going on? I saw the breach 3 unmanned drones. Runners. Tactical recon units with onboard weapon systems. Experimental prototypes. They shouldn't be live. They are now, he spat. Commands offline. Echo's been hit. I've got rookies scattered and no one with actual combat experience out here. I'm here. Hanley stared at her. You're not on the active roster. Ro met his eyes. You want people alive? Or a rulebook followed? He hesitated, then handed her a rifle. Ro checked the mag, racked it once, then slung it over her shoulder. The rescue. Landers and a few others had taken cover near the old motor pool, trying to follow protocol, stay low, stay out of the way. But when the second drone swept past, spraying rubber bullets into the building, panic spread. One recruit was pinned under debris, another bleeding from the leg. Landers crouched beside the girl, Clark. Her name was trying to stop the bleeding with a torn sleeve. They heard the drone whirring back. Closer. Hunting. Move. Move. Someone shouted, but no one did. Then, crack. Crack, crack. 3 bursts. Clean. Controlled. Surgical. The drone spun sideways, sparked, and slammed into a concrete barrier. Dead on impact. Silence. Then boots crunched over gravel. Ro walked out of the smoke, rifle low. She didn't speak, just moved toward the fallen. Landers, she said without looking. Get her behind the engine block. Use pressure bandage. He didn't hesitate. Yes, ma'am. Another burst of gunfire rang out near the east wall. She turned toward it, then paused. Another drone. This one heavier, slower, but armed with non-lethal shock rounds. It was targeting a group of trapped recruits behind a shipping container. They didn't see it coming. Ro sprinted. She ducked behind a fuel tank, calculated wind, timing, velocity. One shot. Crack. The drone jerked, then recalibrated. Crack. Crack. She advanced. When it pivoted toward her, she dove forward, rolled beneath the arc of its taser arm, jammed the muzzle of her rifle against its undercarriage. Boom! Sparks rained. The drone twitched, whined, and collapsed. She lay still for a second, then stood. The rookies who'd been trapped stared at her like she wasn't real. Get to the bunker, she snapped. Now. They obeyed. Later, on the field, the breach was contained by 0800. 1 confirmed fatality. 4 injured. 8 drones neutralized. 5 by external force. 3 by her. The cleanup teams moved in, securing evidence, recovering data cores. Officers returned to their posts. Hanley stood in the middle of it all, exhausted. Rose sat on the tailgate of an old Humvee, cleaning her rifle with an almost meditative focus. Her uniform was even more stained now. Soot, oil, dried blood. Landers approached quietly. You saved my life. She didn't look up. You wouldn't have needed saving if you weren't out of position. I was trying to help. You did. He shifted on his feet. You could have left us. Waited for backup. Let the techs do it. Her hands didn't stop moving. I don't wait when people are dying. He hesitated. Why don't you come back? Full ops. Leadership. Hell, you could be running this place. She finally looked up. I did my time in the fire, she said. Now I walk beside it. That's enough. He didn't fully understand, but he nodded. You're still the widow, though. Her gaze hardened slightly, but not with anger. I'm Sarah Rowe, she said. The nickname was for the people who needed a ghost to believe in. I'm just the one who survived. By the next morning, everything had gone back to normal. Or at least, it looked that way. The sirens were silent. The skies were clear. The damage was swept away as if the breach never happened. But something unspoken had changed in the air, like the static that lingers after a storm. The rookies were quieter at breakfast. Even the loud ones. There were no jokes in the chow hall. No sarcasm. No elbow nudging. They sat straighter now, ate in silence, like something sacred had brushed against them and left its weight behind. At the far end of the room, Rose sat at her usual table, alone. She ate slowly, methodically, eyes on her tray. Her uniform still bore the fresh smudges of soot and oil. She hadn't changed it. A few heads turned toward her, then quickly away. Not out of fear, not anymore, but out of reverence. No one wanted to disturb whatever it was she carried. Landers stood near the coffee station, his hands wrapped around a chipped mug. He watched her, then turned to Keenan. She saved half the squad. She always does, Keenan said, even when no one knows it. Landers hesitated. Does she want anyone to know? Keenan shrugged. I think she'd rather be forgotten than misunderstood. Later that afternoon, the recruits were back on the field, the same place where Landers had made the mistake that started it all. Sergeant Hanley blew his whistle and barked out commands, same as always, but even he had shifted slightly. His voice didn't thunder as loud when she passed by. He no longer referred to her by rank. He simply nodded. Respect. Earned. Rowe watched from the shade, arms crossed, sunglasses shielding her eyes. A clipboard hung loosely at her side, though she hadn't written on it all day. Landers broke formation during a short water break and jogged over. He stopped a few feet from her, uncertain. She turned slightly, enough to acknowledge him without speaking. I know I said it before, Landers began, but I mean it now. She didn't respond. I didn't just underestimate you, he went on. I mocked what I didn't understand. I looked at a uniform and thought that told the whole story. Rose studied him for a moment. You thought it made you better. He nodded, shamed. Yeah. But now you know better? She asked. I don't think I know anything, he admitted. But I'm listening now. That got the faintest shift of her expression. A twitch at the corner of her mouth. Not a smile, not quite, but close. You're not the first, she said. You won't be the last. Landers looked down. Do you ever think about teaching full-time? She gave a soft breath, not quite a sigh. I didn't come back to teach. Then why did you come back? Her eyes swept across the field, the fresh recruits, some laughing now, some still haunted from the breach. Young, untested, alive. To make sure they get to go home, she said. Landers nodded, not trusting himself to speak. She looked back to him. You've got potential, Private. He blinked. I do. You made a mistake. Then you owned it. Most people stop at the first part. She glanced toward the obstacle course. Time to earn your next bruise. He cracked a small grin. Yes, ma'am. That evening, the sun dipped low behind the hills, casting the base in long amber shadows. The flags snapped lazily in the breeze. Crickets began chirping from the tall grass beyond the fence. Rose stood alone outside the old barracks, watching the horizon like she was waiting for something. Landers passed her on the path, then stopped. He turned back, holding a folded slip of paper. I wrote this, he said. Just something for myself. I thought you might want to read it. She took it without comment, unfolded it. Her eyes skimmed the page. Ask before you laugh. She folded it again and tucked it into her jacket. He waited a beat. You ever think about replacing the uniform? I mean, not out of disrespect. Just so people see you, not just your past. She looked down at the worn fabric, the threadbare patch on her shoulder. This uniform is the last thing I wore when he was alive, she said, voice barely above a whisper. And the first thing I wore when I brought his memory home. Landers swallowed hard. I don't want people to see me, she said. I want them to remember what it cost. He didn't have an answer for that. She stepped forward, gently clapped a hand on his shoulder, then walked past him into the dusk. Later that night, Landers tacked something to the bulletin board above his bunk. A copy of the patch, hand-drawn. Below it, ask before you laugh. Learn before you speak. Respect what you don't yet understand. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of night insects and distant hum of generators. Keenan looked up at it and nodded once. She'd never admit it, he said, but she changed the whole squad. No, Landers said. She didn't change us. She reminded us what it means to become soldiers. Final scene. Rose sat alone by the motor pool, cleaning her rifle under the stars. A breeze tugged at her sleeves. Her face was calm, not smiling, not mourning, just steady. A quiet legend, a walking memory, a living warning. And somewhere in the darkness behind her, voices hushed. Not because of fear, because of respect, because they knew now. The Iron Widow wasn't a myth. She was right here, and she was watching.